Mstislau is one of the most ancient towns in all Eastern Europe. It reflects the entire history of Belarus. In the distant past, this place was a mighty fortress at the western frontier of the Principality of Smolensk, the capital of the province back in the Middle Ages, a well-developed center of trade, crafts and culture, a place that received Magdeburg law and a coat of arms of its own. The stormy historical past of Mstislau has been epitomized in numerous archaeological, historical and cultural monuments. These very monuments can lay the foundation for the sustainable development of the town and increase its tourism potential. And still, nowadays Mstislau is a relatively small Belarusian country town with its share of problems and unrealized opportunities. Mstislau is located at the country's eastern border, about 300 kilometers from Minsk, the capital of Belarus, and its international airport. The distance to the nearest railway station is about 20 kilometers. There is only one hotel in the entire town, and it doesn't meet the present-day standards. The underdeveloped tourist infrastructure also poses a problem. Mstislau is a rural town on the edges of Belarus, at the border with the Russian Federation. It seems like there's room for growth. We are at the crossroads of Europe, and yet we still remain a little out of the way. These days, the town's population stands at 11,000 people, but at least a third of them works in Russia. Is it any wonder, considering the town's economy is represented by only two enterprises, a bakery and a dairy? How can we bring back the past grandeur of the town with such a rich historical and cultural past? Is it possible to create conditions for local business development and new workplaces and improve the investment climate using the potential of its historical heritage? In 2015, Mstislau became one of the pilot towns for the implementation of the project of the Council of Europe and the European Union, Comus, community-led urban strategies in historic towns. The main goal of the Comus project is to stimulate the social and economic development of historical towns, while actively using the resources of cultural and natural heritage, involving the resident population in the administration of the town and restoration of the historical sites, tourism development, and implementation of various cultural initiatives.
The
Republic of Belarus made a completely reasonable decision to choose Mstislau to be a pilot town, as it has an extensive ancient history and the local community shows interest in participating in the common project of the Council of Europe and the European Union.
Nowadays, Project Comus stands for the international recognition of our town, its advertising and hopefully future investments. Mstislau is a wonderful place. There's plenty of heritage sites in town, and the usage of this heritage should be viewed exactly as an instrument that can bring us new economic, social and cultural development potential.
What we would primarily like to achieve with the Comus project is the competent international support, recommendations and advice on how to restore and preserve our historical heritage. We needed to help the residents of our town lead a comfortable life in the cultural and historical environment we currently have.
International practice shows that cultural and natural heritage can become the main resource for a historical town development, a catalyst for its social and economic development. We need to preserve everything and develop everything if we intend to attract tourists in the future, as heritage creates unique urban environments. Oftentimes, we can be unnecessarily revolutionary. The wooden architecture of Mstislau is very distinctive and interesting. The traditional residential development can still be found here.
Очень характерна деревянная архитектура.
This is a country of wood, and wooden architecture is indicative of our country. I keep emphasizing that this is what makes us stand out. Even the 20th century architecture, all these architraves, these window frames, we made them, and yet we forget about that and don't appreciate it. But on the other hand, you can't live in a building that lacks modern conveniences, and so we unwittingly destroy our own heritage.
I asked my friend for help, and she told me they had an artist at the general store. We met, I told him I needed such paintings made, and he named a hefty price. So I decided to paint it all myself. Here I painted a chamomile and the leaves and the lotus and the frog.
Mstislau is a town of many churches and monasteries. The Pustinsky monastery of the 17th-18th centuries still remains the object of pilgrimage for many Christians these days, just as it was many years ago. An acheiropaic image of Jesus Christ appeared on the wall in one of the monastic cells not so long ago. The International Night Festival is one of the most important cultural events in town. Even today, the event leaves a profit consistent with 10 to 15% of the town's annual budget. Today our primary task is to identify our priorities, work out a strategy of the town's development based on the usage of our heritage resources, taking into account the feedback from the town's residents.
First of all, we need to identify the areas of priority which we would like to focus our resources on. Perhaps that would be the construction of that hotel we've mentioned, or the development of transport infrastructure. And then we will need to create an agency that will manage all of the activities and coordinate the work, because so far this is being done on volunteer basis.
We have a river, a forest, a beautiful landscape, all of which could be adapted for tourism. But tourism is a business, and running a business is a different problem entirely. You can't attract a tourist with just some 3 or 4 monuments.
Well, a lot of cities in this situation...
The thing is, all of the towns belong to their residents. The town's heritage also belongs to its residents. And I can see that people of Mstislau gradually come to realize that their town's fate is in their own hands and that they should actively participate in the development of the path their hometown is taking to achieve progress. During the implementation of the Comus project, the town's residents and the local authorities of Mstislau developed a town management plan that was based on its specific demands, capabilities, and prospects. School children and students also took part in the plan's development, offering their own vision of what their town would look like in 25 years.
I imagine that in 25 years my town would still have all of its historical architecture preserved, and new gyms and clubs will be built.
I believe that Mstislau is the most beautiful town in Belarus, and I think in 15 to 20 years Mstislau would probably become the cultural capital of not just the Mogilov region, but of the entire country of Belarus. It would be nice to preserve all of the historical monuments as well as to add many new exciting places, like tourist camps, for instance, or children's holiday resorts and playgrounds.
Let's put it this way, the life of Mstislau is in our hands, and whatever is being done in this town is in our hands. Everyone can contribute to it.
Из более чем 20 направлений деятельности, описанных в плане управления городом Мстиславля и предназначенных...
Out of more than 20 activities described in the Mstislav management plan aimed at achieving its main goal of turning the town into a modern cultural and tourist center in the eastern Belarus, 5 priority projects have been selected, for which the town intends to seek financing in the near future.
Among the priority areas are the restoration of the Carmelite Roman Catholic Church and the unique murals of the 17th century, as well as the restoration of the Jesuit College and their effective use for the needs of the town. For example, creation of an art residency, a business incubator for creative youth projects, a concert hall, and a 40-bed dormitory. The restoration of the building of the former Hermitage Hotel and the opening of a modern hotel on its site are also in the planning. Residents of the town consider the restoration and revitalization of the building of the former men's gymnasium and the creation of a modern educational center for adults and children, the so-called community school, in the building a priority, as well as finally opening the visitor information center on the town's central square at the old shopping street.
Мы очень любим наш маленький, но исторически важный для страны город.
We do love our cozy little town a lot. This was the place we met and started our family. I hope our town is going to keep developing and flourishing in the near future.
Наши детки
And we hope our children would also live in this beautiful small town.
маленьком городе.
The old Mstislau is intended to become the principal magnet of tourism. Local authorities and the residents of the small Belarusian town plan to achieve this goal by implementing the Comus common project of the European Union and the Council of Europe. Great history, cultural resources of the region, and distinctive local character also contribute to it. Now, everything depends on the determination, resourcefulness, and the initiative of the town's residents, as well as on their personal involvement in the place they live in and the pride they have in their small motherland.